Thank you, Spencer. I will now walk through the financial viability of the strategy of building an ambulatory surgery center in Middleborough. First off, for costs, as far as the costs associated with opening the surgery center, a big benefit is that there's already a space available in the Middleborough complex, which can be repurposed to be used as an ambulatory surgery center. This will keep the cost of the project comparatively low, and as seen here, the total cost of renovation, including the needed equipment, is $550,000. With a projected salvage value of $350,000 after 5 years, the yearly depreciation comes in at $40,000. This number will be used a bit later on in this presentation in our break-even analysis. As part of this strategy, medical associates will need to hire 2 additional physicians to add capacity needed to support the ambulatory surgery center. The yearly cost for the salaries for the 2 additional physicians will be just over $450,000 per year. For our financial analysis, the cost of capital used by medical associates is 3.5%, and as we'll see later in this presentation, that is used in our break-even analysis. A big determining factor for if this project is viable is yearly operational revenues. As we can see on the slide here, it says that this is expected to be profitable over the first 5 years, but clearly it's important how profitable it would be and if we can recoup the expenses associated. With the limited details available from the case, we had to make assumptions, and we're able to look at the background of Middleborough and look into the cases and find some details that are applicable for us to make some assumptions and get our best estimate for yearly revenues. So going through these assumptions, the first, currently medical associates does employ surgeons, and these surgeons work at Midcare Hospital, which is also in Middleborough. So our big assumption related to surgical case volume is that we will be able to transition 60% of the surgical cases that are currently done at Midcare Hospital by medical associate surgeons over to the new ambulatory surgery center. So since these surgeons are already associated with medical associates, they're employed there. We're just saying instead of doing these surgeries at the Midcare Hospital, they will be performed at the ambulatory surgery center. Next, the revenue associated with the surgical cases that take place, our assumption is that revenue will be 150% of Medicare's typical rates. So there is data available on CMS, from the CMS website. So we looked at typical procedures as an estimate for each of the specialties that we will have at the ambulatory surgery center. As far as cost, we're estimating 100% of Medicare rates, and this cost would include the cost for physicians and staff, as well as all other expenses associated with operations of the facility. So looking at these 2 numbers for revenue and cost, we would end up with a profit margin of 50% Medicare reimbursement rates. Based on the assumptions we just outlined, we put together a revenue forecast. As you can see here in our surgery center, we want to have 4 specialties: orthopedics, general, OBGYN, as well as urology. The annual surgical case volume, we talked a little bit about that last slide, but this is based on the current volumes that are happening over at Midcare by the surgeons employed by medical associates. And the rest of the assumptions laid out here as far as revenue and cost, and we arrive at a net revenue of just over $1.18 million for year 1. tying our revenue forecasts into the break-even financial projections here. We have some costs that were outlined as well as operational revenues. And as we can see, we sum up the present cost using the 3.5% cost of capital. And there is a very large positive value of the present cost here. So it looks like the value of pursuing this strategy is just over $5.5 million. So as far as a financial perspective, this is a slam dunk for medical associates to pursue. All right, so Spencer talked about a bit about how this strategy aligns with the mission and vision and other reasons that it makes sense for our project. And we went through the financials that said, yes, this is financially viable. So after the implementation of this new surgery center and things are in place, we want to make sure that we measure how our operations are doing, and we have some key metrics that we want to track to ensure success. The idea is that we can create an executive dashboard to measure these key outcomes. Some of the outcomes include surgical case count, make sure that that matches our estimates, tracking operational revenue per surgical case type to understand where we're making or maybe not making so much money, tracking the overall expense of the surgical center, making sure that expenses are kept in check, and looking at the overall entire surgery center as a whole and looking at the operational revenues that are generated there, making sure those are tracking with our expectations. So that is the end of our presentation. Thank you very much.